The seventh generation of gaming is one of my all-time favorites, mostly because it felt like the last generation where games were made from a perspective of passion and not purely on business. Of course, there are exceptions, but I truly felt all of the major companies were still firing at all cylinders through the PS3, Wii, and Xbox 360 generation. Case in point, during the PS3 era, Sony put a lot of money into publishing other developers' games on their platforms, a practice that is still done just as much today. However, there was one game that it felt like Sony truly wanted to mean something, even to the point where it received its own animated show and movie. Today, we're playing Heavenly Sword and then watching the movie. Let's get started. The first concepts for Heavenly Sword were developed by Ninja Theory as early as 2002, and a CGI trailer was created to help guide the team as development commenced. Initially, Ninja Theory wasn't sure where exactly the game would go, but as work commenced, PlayStation struck a deal to publish the game as an exclusive to their upcoming PS3. This was when work really began, with the team choosing the Havok Complete engine to base the game on. Taking inspiration from movies such as Crouching Tiger, Hero, and Princess Mononoke, the team developed Heavenly Sword into something that was very visually distinct, with a focus on telling a cinematic story through the action-adventure genre. Working with Peter Jackson's Weta VX company, the team created realistic facial movements, and motion capture was filmed for King Bohan, being portrayed in both voice and motion capture by actor Andy Serkis, best known for his roles as Gollum and Caesar from the Planet of the Apes franchise. Serkis would also take the role of dramatic director for the game, and even helped write some of the story. It was ultimately released on September 12, 2007 in North America for PS3, and received pretty solid reviews across the board, with the focus being put on its acting and combat systems. Unfortunately, even with the sales being decent, it is reported that Ninja Theory did not end up breaking even on the game. In my opinion, the game is just okay. It was a very strong God of War vibe with its combat, which I do appreciate, and the graphics were pretty good for their time. But I feel like the game is a little too repetitive for my liking. The combat isn't deep enough to warrant how long and how often fights are, even after all the stances are unlocked. Not to mention, Heavenly Sword wants to make sure that you understand, because it will throw 12 enemies at you at a time, and getting cornered by a crowd is very common, as is getting your non-hit combo score broken, because even if you evade, it's not unusual for you to evade directly into another enemy's attack. Beyond the combat, the biggest thing that bothered me the most about this game was the way the camera was controlled. I'm not sure if there was a sensitivity setting I could have turned down, but using the shoulder buttons to move the camera left and right was really annoying because it would do so as fast as it possibly could. I did enjoy that they tried to offer variety with Kai missions and the cannons in the beginning, but its over-reliance on the 6-axis controller to get anything done made some of these sections super frustrating, as the 6-axis is not nearly as good as some developers tried to make it, and sections like this just tend to bother me more than anything. It's definitely a game I feel like could have for sure been enhanced by a sequel, but in the meantime, Heavenly Sword isn't worth going back to in my opinion. The idea to make a film based on the property was pitched to Sony by Blockade Entertainment, who felt like CGI had progressed to a point where they could make Hollywood-level animated movies for a fraction of the cost. Being intrigued, Sony signed a deal and production began. Blockade relied heavily on existing assets from the game, with most of them being provided by Andy Serkis, who had a personal archive from when the game was first developed. Anna Torv would return as Noriko, and Serkis was replaced by Alfred Molina as King Bohan due to scheduling conflicts. Thomas Jane and Nolan North were both also brought on to round out the cast. After the film received positive reception in early screenings, the decision was made to bring the film to Cannes to find a distributor. A number of bids were thrown out, and the film ended up being released on DVD and select theaters September 2nd, 2014. I thought the movie was pretty okay. I will say that for the time in 2014, this CGI animation was probably way more impressive, but it still doesn't look bad to this day. The plot moves a little slow for my liking. I understand the game is very cinematic, but this movie seems to simply drone on without too many action scenes. When these scenes do come up though, they are easily the highlight of the movie. I'm not entirely sure why exactly they waited 7 years to make this a movie, but in my opinion, this game is a prime example of an easy adaptation. This is a fun little forgotten gem, and I'm glad I was able to find a copy for extremely cheap, although the whole thing is available through the distributor's YouTube channel for free. I think Heavenly Sword is a really interesting property, and it's a shame that it never got to continue and refine itself into something smoother, although there were a few attempts to make a sequel that ended up falling apart. This is an interesting entry in PlayStation's first-party history, and definitely one to skip unless you're super curious. I want to do episodes of this show over time that show off more obscure video game movies like this one, so if you'd like that, let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe while you're down there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.